Meeting to order, and thank everyone for being here. Rob and I have met a few times. We want to make sure that we as a committee are, getting things accomplished so nobody feels like their time is wasted. So our intention with today's meeting was to move on from body camera policy. The intention was to have the draft from the sheriff's office out to everyone by April 29th for review. Give any last feedback that we might have, and have the sheriff's office take it from there. I think the sheriff just joined us. Sheriff, are you here?
Yes, I am, Tristia. Thank you. The owner share is with me. She's having some audio problems with her computer.
Great. So the first agenda item was reviewing the draft body camera policy that was going to get circulated by April 29th, but we did not get that from you. Can we get an update as to what's going on with the body camera policy?
Yeah, Tristia, we have that completed. We're just trying to get county attorney just to peruse it first and make sure that there's nothing there that we can't really move forward with. But it is completed. I'll talk to Chris again today to see if we can get that out to him and send it.
Sheriff, about this, there were some things that this committee had been discussing on the different points that were in that body camera policy supplement that Supervisor Chimides drafted, and ultimately policy falls to the sheriff's office, and that you were going to kind of summate for this group and the public who might be listening in as to where you finally fell on some of those issues that we were going back and forth on, where the draft is going to stand on those issues.
Or are you waiting to hear from the county attorney before you divulge that?
Yeah, I would really like the county attorneys just to look over everything before we go ahead and put anything out to the public in a public forum such as this. I don't want to speak at a school, so to say.
I want to reiterate, well, make one quick point here that some of the information that was given to the sheriff were not from sheriff's departments, if I recall. So I think that was a key point that the sheriff brought up, that the sheriff's department is different than other policing departments. And I think that was part of the discussion that you're probably going to have with the county attorneys. Is that correct, Sheriff?
That is, I mean, we've I could tell you briefly, we expanded the usage or the instance where we would be utilizing it or requiring it to be utilized. And we made a couple of augmentations. And again, I just want to make sure that we're not doing anything that we as a sheriff's office are not going to be unable to do. So I don't want to have a policy and then go ahead and reframe it again. So before I release anything, especially in a public forum, I'd just like to have them look it over. And I do apologize it's taking so long, but we have quite a few fires burning here, and they all need like immediate attention. So we are working.
You can get us that by the middle of the month, which would be a couple weeks.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I'm going to contact
All
Chris again. Matter of fact, he's on a meeting with the first sergeant right now on another matter. So I don't see why we can't squeeze this in as well.
Okay.
So let's table the first agenda item to the June 7th meeting with the hopes that we will be done with body cameras after the June 7th meeting. And Sheriff, if you get it out to us in the next couple of weeks, that'll give the committee members a couple of weeks to look it over and review it, and we'll have a final discussion at that meeting. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah, that's fantastic. And just like I said, I mean, it's already drafted up. It's just a matter of crossing the T's and dotting the I's.
If I may, Supervisor, I know we're waiting for the version from the sheriff, but did you and Supervisor Lagonia touch base with the union, understanding that the sheriff is going to hand us over a document to kind of coordinate and to see if we're going to be able to do whatever the recommendations the sheriff is going to put forth?
Our meeting, Bill,
Yeah.
we met also with the sheriff and the undersheriff. So it was a collaborative discussion with the labor attorney that was there. So yes.
Awesome.
And I will say at the end of the day from that meeting, the 3 items that were tabled for union input, which were number 1, 2, and 6 off of the document that we've been working off of, At the end of the day, and we'll let the sheriff speak to this at the next meeting. But there wasn't a need really to go further to the union because the sheriff might have pushback against. And so when the sheriff presents the draft policy, he can go into, the relevant details as to why, but we didn't end up needing a meeting with the union because it seemed like the sheriff was on the same page with where the union would be advocating for.
Okay, great.
All right. Anything else on this? We're gonna table it and come back to it in June. Awesome.
Supervisor Holding, the
So-
undersheriff's just checking to make sure that she thought she said sent you a draft copy of it, but she's just making sure that she sent it or ensuring that it didn't get sent. But either way, we should be able to get a draft to you at some point
Okay,
before we're planning to.
awesome. Thank you. So Supervisor Ligonia and I had a meeting and decided that we should move on from body cameras and look at the other things that are in the plan. So I sent you all page 24, starting on page 24 of the plan that really has the action items. And Supervisor Ligonia and I sat down and looked at which ones weren't marked complete, or some of them that were marked complete or current that we just wanted an update from. A lot of them will be updates. Thank you, Sherry. From the sheriff's office. And I know that the rest of the committee also looked through the plan. So please jump in if there's anything that we might have missed that you think needs an update or a follow-up or some action. On page 24, we didn't see anything that needed an update. Same with page 25. And again, feel free to stop me if you had something to address. And same with page 26. We did not have anything that we saw that needed addressing. First update we saw was on page 27. And it's really a status check-in.
This is Dave here. I actually have a question on 26.
Okay.
About the demographic collection. I would love to know what the racial and ethnic breakdowns are, and which categories are in that. Because I belong to a racial group that's not counted in any federal, state, or local demographic collections from the census down to anything else official. And I'm among a number of people who are really pushing for us to be included. Not that we expect to be involved. We're a law-abiding group. We don't expect to be involved in a lot of crimes, but still, in our push to be counted, we'd like a category for us, and that's people from the Swana region, Southwest Asia, North Africa. Some people refer to it as the Middle East and North Africa. Is there any way we can get us onto this demographic report?
Where do people think we start? This is a report that's filed by the Sheriff's Office with DCJS. I believe in the original police reform conversation, the Sheriff's Office said that they have boxes that they check, and it's not one of the boxes. So, Sheriff, do you think it would be DCJS that the conversation would start with to expand the categories?
I mean, I think that falls under other, and then we could, possibly create a fill-in for that. But where do we stop breaking it down? That's the only problem. I mean, we're here to collect data that's required by the state, and now we're asking for a lot more data that that isn't or hasn't been required, and we need to implement this into an RMS program. And each time we make a change to the RMS program, what we're requesting, not that it's a major change, but it may get the snowball rolling down the hill and create a much more major changes, which is more money. I mean, we're not that we're against spending money, but this is about police reform, and we're trying to get the money where it needs to be. We don't have an endless well, but I'd be happy to try to take in consideration everyone's feelings and not miss anyone's requests. But
well, as a group, we're profiled by law enforcement. The NYPD infiltrated our communities, so I'm not sure how you're counting that stuff. If there's not a category for us, it may look like we have no interactions with the law enforcement. So
I don't know of any complaints that we've received for any profiling here at the sheriff's office. I guess that would be the first question. I mean, I haven't reviewed any data that there's been any profiling complaints.
So,
I'll take it into consideration, and I'll leave it in the hands of this council and say you want to move forward with it. We are implementing a new RMS program that we're working with Black Creek, which was the original vendor who we had the agreement with and spent a lot of money with, and we've changed the folks that we deal with based on some ethics issues. So we're dealing with different employees of that company now, which kind of brought us back a little bit, which is okay if everything is on an ethical basis. We don't mind taking a little step back and make sure we're doing things right, but we want to move forward with this, and we're trying to comply with all your requests, but we also have a lot of other things going on here at the sheriff's office we need to address as well.
Sheriff, is this form the same form that's used throughout the state, or is it broken up to different demographic areas within the state? Do you know that?
Our RMS is going to be one of the first programs of its kind in the state. I believe we're the first sheriff's office that's implementing it. We've kind of built it around the requests and around our needs as well, so we could use it both in the jail facility and on the road. And we've integrated a lot of other data points into the program. I can get First Sergeant Bohm to talk with everyone and explain exactly what we've integrated and the costs associated with it. But again, it's a maintenance cost, and more intrusive we get, I guess, into changing the data, and then the more it's going to cost. We have to implement that. So we're ready to move forward with this RMS. It's just a matter of just working out the hiccups.
Bill, you had a question?
yeah, I was gonna more of a comment. So what Mr. Hall is bringing up, and Sheriff, you wouldn't have be aware of this because it happened during the previous administration, but there were at least 2 incidents with the Muslim community. One that was very well documented, and actually, a recourse action was demanded because of. Sorry about that. A recourse action was demanded because of the action of the officer, and a complaint was filed. And he's right. There's probably no documentation or no notation of that in that category, because there's no category really to put it in other than other. Now, we did discuss when we were developing this policy about how to gather data, and it to your point, Sheriff, you said it was going to be costly and somewhat difficult to add another line in there. But at the time, I believe it was Captain Bray indicated that it wasn't impossible, and that we would look into it. And so that's why I think Mr. Hall now is asking, are we looking into it? And you're saying that we are developing a policy. I would ask is that we ask the people in is it Black Creek or Black Rock? If it's possible, and what the cost would be associated with that. And if it was too costly, then I would agree with you. I would move on. But if the cost was amenable, we should certainly think about it.
And I don't disagree. I'm just commenting on the fact that I don't want to leave anyone out. I mean, currently we're reporting what the state is requesting us to report. We start adding more lines and more areas of reporting. Where do we stop? I mean, am I going to offend the Native American population? Am I going to offend,
it's not a matter of offense. It's a matter of demographic collection.
And I agree. I mean, I think more data we have, the better.
Now,
Dave, can I ask for clarification on your request?
pardon me?
Can I ask for a little clarification on your request, your advocacy? Right
Sure.
now, obviously, we're talking about Columbia County and the sheriff's office. Is your request also potentially asking DCJS, for example, to add it in? Because I think it could be twofold. I'm just thinking outside of the box.
Well, I've been talking with Dee Dee Barrett's office about trying to get this change on the state level, and President Biden has said that on the next census there will be a category for us, something we were promised last time, and we've been fighting for several decades. So I've noticed that. Well, for instance, can I ask, when it comes to gender, how many options are there on the demographics? Is it just male and female, or do we have other categories under gender in that demographic collection that you've got going on now?
The first sergeant is logging in right now to give you an accurate count.
Yeah, because I've noticed over the last few years, a lot of data collection has been very, very progressive in terms of accepting different gender expression, which I think is great, of course. But much, much more resistant to counting, several million Americans that don't fall into any racial of the existing racial categories. So, and if it gets tracked off as other, I don't know what that really serves in terms of accuracy and inclusion.
So my thoughts around this is, if the cost to add this to the computer system was prohibitive, when we get into the conversation about doing the complaint forms, we will be able to gather the data there as the complaints forms were filed. Have a section there where you can indicate your ethnicity, and maybe gather the data at that level.
Yeah, and if that's what we can get, that would certainly be better than having no count.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to protecting everyone's rights and making sure that law enforcement, at least through the sheriff's office, is not involved in profiling or any biased type of law enforcement activity. But
well, I'm not suggesting that there's been a particular problem with Columbia County law enforcement. I was just using it as an example that there's been widespread profiling of our community. And if there's no way to sort of record that, either as victims or for internal information gathering, it's just kind of this big invisible area.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, Dave. One of my things is that we're trying to work more closely with our communities here in Columbia County. And we've reached out to community leaders throughout Columbia County. So far, I think we have a pretty open relationship where we can have those conversations. Where, matter of fact, I just got a call 2 days ago in regards to an incident that occurred where they had some concern to the video, just to make sure that everyone was treated fairly and equally. And I think what it comes down to sometimes is that we have a language barrier, and we're trying to combat that as well. We're working towards getting community leaders to, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Community leaders to put a spotlight on some people who can come in and teach some basic language skills to our deputies. But this is all things that are going to take time. I mean, these are trainings we need to implement, to integrate into our office. We have a manpower issue. We've inherited a lot of information that we're reviewing and addressing issues where we find them. So I appreciate the fact that the Police Reform Committee is looking to improve the relations and oversight on law enforcement. But we honestly, here in the Sheriff's Office, are doing some policing within our own ranks, and making sure that we haven't missed anything that we need to address that's been trickled over from past incidents. So we really have our hands full, and we're trying to, really address all these issues and all these wants. But we also have things that need our immediate attention, so that we can address them now instead of pushing them off and them getting lost in the mess here.
Well, I definitely hear you on all of that. And I don't think anybody on this committee has wanted to overburden the department at any point in the last administration or in this one. But it is an agenda item I see here, or it is on this page 26, New York State Mandate number 6. So that was the reason I had the question about it, because it came up.
So
And
let's
it-
look into the cost, and then we can move on.
Why don't we ask the sheriff to look into it? Is it doable to ask how much would it cost, and we'll table it. We'll come back to it either at the June meeting, or if that isn't enough time to get an answer, then we can revisit it in July. I think it sounds like the sheriff is open to it as long as it's not cost prohibitive and it's a doable thing. And so Sheriff, if you can look into those two things, are you able to add a category for the sheriff's office? And if so, how much does that cost? And then we'll come back around to it.
And I also think we have to take into account the sheriff's point of, where does that end? And how do we then add other categories? So I think that's also an important part of.
Again,
the
I'm sorry. I think that if the cost prohibitive comes in, I think it is very easy to add it to the complaint form. Because that's an office generated form, and you could just add the line to it, and then as you capture that data, you will at least have some capture of various ethnicities.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with Mr. Hughes. And Dave, just to answer your question, it's for the new RMS. The new RMS has four different choices. It's male, female, non-binary, and transgender. So that's what we're working with right now, implementing.
Yeah, so it seems like there's been a very quick move to expand that, which, as I said, I think is awesome. So yeah, it just seems to me that after decades of this, that we should be able to look upon Arabs and others from the Swana region as worthy of inclusion as well. So if we can do it in any way, it would be great. If it's
Maybe we
prohibited,
can have a more thorough conversation on that at a later date. I would be definitely open for that.
great.
All right, page 27. So just checking in with the sheriff's office, it was marked as pending repeal of Civil Rights Law 50A, which had made all personnel records used to evaluate the performance toward continued employment or promotion of police officers, firefighters, paramedics, correction officers, or peace officers confidential and not subject to inspection or review without the individual's express written consent or a court order. Now those are subject to FOIL, requiring specific sensitive personal information, including medical history, to be redacted. So Sheriff, we're just checking in on your FOIL system to make sure it's in compliance with the new rules, so that the disciplinary and personnel records are given when requested with proper redaction.
Very short answer to that. My first sergeant is sitting right here, who's in charge of the civil unit as well, and he says yes.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, have you received any request for any personnel records or disciplinary records since the repeal of 50A?
For some reason, it was just mine and the former sheriff's. That was it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on that item? All right, next page. So reports will now be made quarterly to the county governing body and the public. Local, well, you can only speak for yours. So monthly reports submitted by the sheriff's office are currently provided to DCJS and the Columbia County Board of Supervisors. We're now looking for quarterly reports, so I guess that would have been the April public safety meeting. And maybe Sheriff, you weren't aware that that was a due date on this report. I certainly wasn't until I looked back on the thing, and I'm on public safety. I don't believe we received that, right?
I'm not. Can you repeat the question, Tristy? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we use the full Board of Supervisors used to receive an annual report from your office, and now we're to receive quarterly reports. So I would think actually March would have been the first one, right? March, June, September, December. And just checking in if you knew that change was made, and if you have had a chance to produce a quarterly report. I don't believe you have, because I'm on public safety.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. This is receiving this was kind of the first I'm hearing of it. So we did not produce a quarterly report. Again, we're implementing this new reporting system, which we're transitioning over to that. So there's a little bit of chaos, but we can get something printed up and get it out to the board ASAP.
And Mr. Ligonia, as Chair of Public Safety, should we just have him do a June report and then
It'd be the
quarterly?
July- It would be at the July meeting. Right?
Yeah, I guess I was thinking
Yeah,
March, June,
January,
September,
February,
December.
March, we get it at the April meeting. So it would be June,
Through
we get it at the July meeting.
Okay,
So just to clarify, you're asking for the annual report and you just want to
Quarterly.
go down in the quarters.
Correct. So why don't you this year give us a semi-annual because, of what's going on? So provide us with that at the July meeting, if you would, please, and then from that, there forward, quarterly.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can I ask that, after we do these quarterly, and if there is no data or significant events over a period of time, can we revisit this only because of personnel issues? We are insanely short-staffed here, and listen, we ran a campaign of transparency. We want to give you everything, but we are putting more and more and more on everybody that's here, and we want to give you this stuff. But if there's no data that suggests anything is going wrong here, can we revisit this later and go back to a semi-annual rather than quarterly?
I'm fine with that as the chairman of the public safety at this point. That's why I said, let's push it to July. Let's review the data, and then we can have a discussion moving forward.
Thank you.
all right. The next one is presence on social media, local police department websites, Facebook, Instagram, other social media platforms and community forums. Updated content to be provided more regularly on each of these platforms. Information will also be shared to the local partnering police departments' websites and other social media platforms and their respective towns, villages. So really just A. And so just to check in with how kind of communication from your office book to keep the
I have been.
Go
I'm
ahead, Jackie. I'm just getting some information on our ability to generate this quarterly report now. And you may have been misinformed by whomever you got the information from before, because it's going to take a pretty heavy lift. You're going to have to manually go through and get that information because the current, so we'd have to break it down until we get this new RMS and try to implement that into a quarterly report status. I'll confer more with the first sergeant and Rebecca here, and while Jackie's answering this question.
We have a couple people here that we've tasked with trying to keep up on updating our social media sites and different events and things that we have. I know I've done a couple of the posts personally, about our recent promotional ceremony and different things that we have happening here. So, and then I put another post to say, have you downloaded our sheriff's app where you can access certain things? So, again, we have people doing triple and quadruple duty because of, we have another, we've had a couple people leave. We're doing the best we can. We're trying.
awesome. Thanks. Dave Hall had a hand raised.
I think I would say, just as a citizen, keep telling us that, because if there need to be changes made, more hires, more realistic reporting, I think you guys should make sure we're hearing that.
Well, I'm taking the entrance exam for the sheriff's office. We have approximately 35 now. And out of those 35, you're going to lose about 40% just during the background process. So, it's a heavy lift to try to get people to come on board and say, hey, we want the job. So, and then once you do get them, then we're pulling away from what we're already doing to get the backgrounds done and get people in the academy. So, we're getting it done. It's a heavy lift, but we're getting it done.
Yeah. And I really hear that. And I appreciate you sharing that and bringing it home. I won't forget it.
And Dave, just to let you know that the board has approved, there's many vacant community at large. If you know anyone looking for a great job that wants to come and work for a local law enforcement, that's how to support that.
I've been in with the black officers of New York City. I figure, who wants to stay in the city all this time? So I'll help with that anyway.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. And Sheriff, just to check back in, I know that you're speaking with us in your office now, but maybe by not calling it an annual report, I would think that your system at any time you can do a year-to-date report. And that's really what we're looking for.
Well, it's more than that, Tristy. It's a lot of this stuff that we give you is hand counted. I mean, our system doesn't generate the information you're looking for. You know, it's something that they're telling me at this point, if we could do it semi-annually, you know, that would be something that would be much less of a lift than quarterly. You know, we have 4 new hires. We have multiples going into the academy. We have a lot of new staff coming out next year. And with that new staffing, we should be able to, you know, complete some more of these requests. But if we could, for this year and this year only, do a semi-annual and get that to you in July, we'll start working on it immediately. But some of these numbers, such as like pistol permits and FOIL requests and a lot of the CAD information from the facility next door.
Page 29. The development of the process is underway. The local and partnering police departments will also participate. The uniform policy is currently under review and revision and will be accessible to the partnering local police departments. Establishment of a citizen review panel to review complaints. That's my question. Is that maybe the next agenda item to take a little bit of the heavy lifting off the sheriff's office, although they'll certainly be involved in the conversation. That's an appointment by the chairman, and the panel has been appointed. Individuals may call the sheriff's office or local police departments to file a complaint or submit a form that can be mailed in, dropped off in person, emailed, or done via online submission. Access to forms will be available for residents to obtain at local town and village halls and county buildings.